He was put to the ultimate test. His true colors shocked everyone and stories. Have you ever truly stopped to consider who would remain by your side if the world, as you know it, suddenly crumbled beneath your feet? If every last shred of your carefully constructed life, your status, your wealth, your very identity, were stripped away in an instant? Would the faces you see every day, the voices you trust, still be there, or would they vanish like smoke in the wind? I often found myself pondering this unsettling question, especially as my empire grew, and the faces around me seemed to change. I decided not to wait to find out. I became a beggar to learn the truth, and the truth was shocking. My name is Orion Blackwood, and for over 4 decades, I poured my life, my intellect, and my very soul into building Omnitech solutions. I remember those early days with a vivid clarity that still warms me. It began in a cramped garage, the air thick with the scent of solder and ambition, shared with a handful of dreamers who believed in a future I could only articulate in fervent whispers. We worked fueled by instant coffee and a shared, almost fanatical, vision. My co-founder, a brilliant but eccentric engineer named Alara Vance, and I would spend nights hunched over circuit boards, arguing passionately about the ethical implications of nascent AI, even as we celebrated small breakthroughs. We weren't just building technology, we were trying to build a better world, one line of code, one sustainable energy solution at a time. From that humble beginning, we grew into a global titan, a name synonymous with cutting-edge AI and sustainable technology, shaping the future with every innovation. Our breakthroughs in neural network processing and carbon capture technology didn't just earn us patents, they earned us a reputation as pioneers, as true innovators who put purpose before profit. My net worth, a figure often whispered in hushed tones by financial magazines and scrutinized by economists, was staggering, placing me among the wealthiest individuals on the planet. I had built an empire, yes, but I had always intended it to be an empire of progress, of genuine betterment for humanity. Yet, despite the immense success, or perhaps because of its very weight, a profound unease began to settle within me. It started subtly, like a hairline crack in a perfectly polished window, almost imperceptible at first. I watched my world, a world I had meticulously crafted, gradually become consumed by a subtle, insidious poison, greed. It began with the language. Conversations shifted from impact and innovation to market share, synergy, and quarterly projections. The gleam in their eyes, once a reflection of shared passion, slowly transformed into an unsettling hunger. My potential heirs, the senior management I had entrusted with the company's future, they seemed to view Omnitech not as a beacon of progress, a vessel for solving humanity's grand challenges, but as a vast, bottomless vault, waiting to be plundered. Their conversations always circled back to personal enrichment, to the next luxury acquisition, rarely to the humanitarian impact or the ethical responsibilities that had been my guiding stars from day one. I remember a board meeting where a new sustainable energy initiative was debated not on its ecological merit, but purely on its short-term ROI, almost leading to its cancellation until I intervened. It was a disheartening transformation, and it left me with a burning question: what truly lay beneath the polished facades? What was left of the heart I had poured into this company? I yearned to know who possessed a heart of genuine compassion, who could see beyond the superficial veneer of wealth, or the desperate guise of poverty. I knew I couldn't simply ask, for people are masters of deception when something is at stake, especially when that something is a multi-billion-dollar inheritance. They would perform, they would pretend, they would say all the right things, their words as empty as their intentions. No, I needed to construct a crucible, a true test of character, one that would strip away all pretense and expose the raw, unfiltered truth. I planned a test, an elaborate charade that would force true colors to the surface. I would become nothing, a blank canvas upon which their true natures would be painted. And the results, as you will soon discover, were far more revealing than I could have ever anticipated. Why would a man with millions, with an empire at his command, choose to shed it all and pretend to be homeless? The answer, for me, was simple: disillusionment. For years, I had observed the subtle shifts in the attitudes of those around me. The small slights, the casual dismissals of those deemed lesser, the growing obsession with appearances and material possessions, it all slowly chipped away at my faith. My grandnephew, Blaze Thorne, a man I had personally mentored since his university days, believing I saw a spark of entrepreneurial spirit and elevated to a senior vice president position at Omnitech, embodied everything I had come to fear. He was slick, ambitious, and utterly devoid of empathy, his eyes constantly scanning for advantage, his mind perpetually calculating the fastest, most ruthless route to my fortune. I watched him interact with junior staff, with cleaning crews, with anyone he perceived as having no power, and saw only a cold, transactional demeanor. He treated them as cogs, not humans. His fiancée, Serafina Vance, a social media influencer whose entire existence revolved around curated perfection and material display, was equally unsettling. Her online persona was a tapestry of designer clothes, exotic vacations, and carefully chosen philanthropic gestures that always seemed to serve her brand more than any actual cause. Together, they formed a formidable, avaricious duo, their conversations peppered with thinly veiled remarks about my age, my outdated vision for Omnitech, and the inevitable transfer of power that they believed was their birthright. They saw my empire not as a legacy of innovation, but as a golden goose waiting to be carved up, a mere stepping stone to their own lavish desires. The very idea of entrusting my life's work, the future of Omnitech, into such hands was anathema to me, a betrayal of everything Elara and I had built. Omnitech was built on a foundation of pushing boundaries, yes, but always with a deep-seated commitment to ethical AI and environmental stewardship. I envisioned a future where technology served humanity, not one where it simply lined the pockets of the already privileged. But this vision was being eroded, piece by piece, by the very people I had hoped would carry it forward. Their treatment of junior staff, their disregard for the less fortunate, their casual cruelty, it sickened me. I couldn't simply fire them or disinherit them based on a gut feeling. I needed irrefutable proof, a clear demonstration of their true nature when they believed no one important was watching. I needed them to show me exactly who they were, without the mask of corporate decorum or familial obligation. So, I devised my plan. A dangerous, exhilarating plunge into the unknown. I would shed my identity, my wealth, my power, and become Silas. Silas, a frail, mute, and seemingly impoverished former factory worker who had fallen on hard times, a figure easily dismissed, overlooked, and, most crucially, someone who could offer absolutely nothing in return. Someone who, in the eyes of my potential heirs, would be utterly insignificant. I spent months preparing, a process that was as physically grueling as it was psychologically challenging. I worked closely with a brilliant theatrical makeup artist, a true artist of transformation, who crafted prosthetics and applied layers of grime and fatigue that even my own reflection struggled to recognize. Each wrinkle, each liver spot, each shadow under the eyes was meticulously designed to add decades to my appearance, to convey a lifetime of hardship. I acquired threadbare, oversized clothes from various charity shops and discarded piles, stained and tattered, smelling faintly of neglect and stale cigarette smoke. I learned to walk with a stoop, a perpetual shiver even on warm days, a halting gait that spoke of chronic pain, malnutrition, and a spirit crushed by life's relentless blows. My voice, usually deep and resonant, I would silence, communicating only through hesitant gestures and the occasional pained groan, ensuring that any attempts at conversation would be met with frustration, making me even easier to ignore, to become invisible. I even created a detailed, if tragic, backstory for Silas, a widower, a victim of factory closures, with no family left, struggling with a debilitating lung condition. It was a story designed to evoke pity in a genuinely compassionate person, but only disdain in those who judged purely by appearances and saw weakness as a fault. I withdrew a significant sum of cash, ensuring I had enough to cover basic needs for the duration of my experiment, but hid it meticulously within layers of my tattered clothing, never letting on that I had a penny to my name. My personal assistant, a trusted confidant of many years named Clara, was the only one privy to my true whereabouts and identity. She was tasked with ensuring Omnitech ran smoothly in my absence, a well-publicized retreat for health reasons, at a secluded, high-security medical facility. Clara, a woman of unwavering loyalty and discretion, was initially horrified by my plan, but ultimately understood its profound necessity. She became my only link to the world I had left behind, a quiet anchor in the storm of my self-imposed solitude. The stakes were immeasurably high. The future of my company, the legacy of my life's work, hinged on this elaborate masquerade. I knew the answers I sought would be painful, shattering even, but I had to know. I had to see if there was any hope left for the heart of Omnitech, for the very ideals I had founded it upon. I wondered, would anyone see past the rags, past the grime, past the silence? Or would they just see what they wanted to see, a reflection of their own prejudices and fears? My experiment was about to begin. The transformation was complete. Orion Blackwood was gone. There was only Silas. So, how did my greedy family treat the poor old uncle? The memory of those first encounters still burns with a cold, clear light in my mind, each detail seared into my consciousness. My journey as Silas began subtly. I chose locations strategically, places near Omnitech properties where Blaze and Seraphina were known to frequent, where their paths would inevitably cross mine. I wanted the encounters to feel organic, accidental, yet undeniable. My initial appearance was carefully curated to be pathetic but not overtly threatening. I would sit on a cold, unforgiving bench outside the gleaming glass facade of Omnitech Tower, its polished surfaces reflecting the crisp, indifferent sky. I huddled against the biting wind, a thin, tattered blanket draped over my shoulders, doing little to ward off the chill that seemed to seep into my very bones. My gaze was a vacant stare fixed on the distant horizon, a pantomime of despair. My face was pale, deliberately made up to look gaunt, my lips chapped, my hands trembled, conveying a profound weariness that was a chilling echo of the real suffering I knew many endured. I could feel the cold concrete beneath me, the indifferent hum of the city around me, and the acute awareness of my own manufactured vulnerability. The first encounter with Blaze and Seraphina unfolded just as I had anticipated, though the reality of their disdain was far more biting than I had imagined. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind that promised a beautiful day for those with warm coats and full bellies. They emerged from a sleek, obsidian-colored electric car, one of the luxury models Omnitech prided itself on providing to its senior executives, a car I had personally approved the design for. Blaze, impeccably tailored in a charcoal suit, his stride confident and arrogant, held open the door for Seraphina, who was a vision of designer labels and carefully applied makeup, her hair a cascade of perfect waves. Her accessories alone probably cost more than some people's annual salaries. As they approached the main entrance, their laughter bright and careless, they had to walk past my slumped form. I deliberately let out a soft, pained cough, a dry, rattling sound designed to draw their attention without being overtly demanding. Blaze's eyes, usually so sharp and calculating, flickered over me with a dismissive glance, his lips curling almost imperceptibly, a fleeting expression of disgust. He didn't even break his stride. Seraphina, however, stopped. My heart momentarily quickened, a foolish flicker of hope, a desperate yearning for a sliver of kindness, but it was quickly extinguished. "Oh, Blaze, look," she purred, pulling out her phone, its screen reflecting her perfectly manicured hand. Such a contrast. Perfect for my authentic street-style reel. It really highlights the urban struggle. She angled her phone, not at me directly, but at herself, taking a quick selfie, my frail, unkempt figure a blurry, ignoble backdrop to her pristine image. Her smile was wide, self-satisfied. Blaze chuckled, a low, guttural sound that grated on my nerves. "Don't get too close, darling. You might catch something. Or worse, smell something. He tugged her arm, gently but firmly, guiding her past me, their laughter echoing briefly before being swallowed by the automatic doors of Omnitech Tower. My heart sank, not in anger, but in a profound sense of confirmation. They saw me not as a human being in distress, but as a prop, an unsightly inconvenience to be ridiculed, a visual element to enhance Seraphina's fabricated narrative. The cold wind bit harder, but it was their indifference that truly chilled me. A few days later, I staged another encounter, this time near a high-end restaurant called The Gilded Spoon, a place where I knew they often dined and entertained clients. It was late afternoon, the chill of approaching evening settling in, painting the sky with hues of bruised purple and gray. I sat on the curb, head bowed, pretending to shiver uncontrollably, my entire body racked by a visible tremor. I knew they would be leaving soon, probably after a long, indulgent lunch. When they finally emerged, their faces flushed with expensive wine and self-satisfaction, their conversation loud and boastful, I deliberately let a small, well-worn coin, a simple quarter, slip from my trembling fingers, rolling it gently in their direction. It clinked softly on the pavement, a tiny, almost imperceptible plea for recognition, for help. Blaze spotted it. He paused, a smirk playing on his lips, a look of cynical amusement. "Look, Seraphina," he said, nudging her with his elbow. "A donation from the universe, perhaps. Or a test of our generosity." He then, with a calculated, deliberate movement, raised his polished leather shoe, a shoe that had likely cost more than my entire Silas wardrobe, and, with a flick of his toe, kicked the coin. It spun across the pavement, glinting briefly, before disappearing into a nearby storm drain, its metallic clink echoing the emptiness of their gesture. "Oops," he drawled, feigning innocence, his eyes glinting with malice. "Butterfingers." Seraphina laughed, a bright, brittle sound that grated on my ears. "Oh, Blaze, you're awful. But honestly, he probably just spent it all on, well, whatever they spend it on." She then pulled out her phone again, recording Blaze as he delivered a pithy, condescending monologue about the importance of self-reliance and the drain on society, gesturing vaguely in my direction with a dismissive flick of his wrist. They were actively reveling in my perceived misery, using my vulnerability to bolster their own inflated sense of superiority, to craft a narrative of their own perceived righteousness. Every word, every dismissive gesture, every cruel laugh was meticulously etched into my memory, data points in my grand experiment, confirming my darkest fears. My third direct interaction with them was perhaps the most telling, the most utterly devoid of any shred of humanity. I was deliberately struggling with a heavy, tattered duffel bag, making it appear as if I might collapse at any moment under its meager weight. I positioned myself near a crosswalk outside the Omnitech campus, a busy area where they would likely pass after a board meeting. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip, casting long, indifferent shadows. As they approached, engrossed in an animated conversation about profit margins and market acquisitions, I stumbled dramatically, letting the bag fall with a heavy thud, scattering a few meager, fake possessions, a worn paperback, a broken comb, a single, stained sock, across the pavement. I let out a choked sound, clutching my chest, exaggerating a wheezing cough. Blaze and Seraphina glanced over. Their expressions didn't even flicker with concern. There was no surprise, no alarm, no momentary pause for empathy. Blaze simply rolled his eyes, muttered something about another nuisance, and steered Seraphina around me, giving me a wide berth as if I carried a contagious disease. Seraphina wrinkled her nose, pulling a designer scarf higher over her face, as if to ward off the stench of poverty, a scent that existed only in her prejudiced mind. They didn't even break their stride. They truly saw nothing. Nothing but an obstacle, a piece of debris in their otherwise perfect, self-serving world. They had no idea who I truly was, the man who had built the very empire they coveted, the man who was now witnessing their true, horrifying colors. Every interaction, every dismissive glance, every kind word, was being meticulously recorded, noted, and analyzed. Throughout my time as Silas, I experienced the pervasive invisibility that cloaks the homeless. People walked past me, their gazes sliding away, their faces carefully neutral, as if acknowledging my existence might obligate them to something. I felt the cold not just in my bones, but in the stares, the turned backs, the utter lack of human connection. There was the constant, low thrum of fear, not for my safety, as I was well resourced, but for the genuine fear of those truly on the streets. I noticed the small details, the hurried footsteps, the tightly clutched purses, the way children would sometimes point before being quickly shushed by their parents. There were days when the sheer weight of this societal indifference became almost unbearable, even though I knew it was all a charade. It deepened my resolve, solidified my understanding of the world I sought to change. I spent some nights observing the city from hidden vantage points, seeing the lights of Omnitech Tower burning late, a symbol of power and progress, and wondering how many of its employees carried the same coldness in their hearts as Blaze and Serafina. I saw other homeless individuals, true souls in distress, and felt a profound, aching empathy, a deep respect for their resilience in a world that had abandoned them. I yearned to help them, but I knew my experiment had to run its course first. But my experiment wasn't just about exposing the callousness of the few. It was about finding the light, the genuine humanity that I desperately hoped still existed within the walls of my company, within this city that I had helped shape. I needed to know if Omnitech still had a soul, or if the greed had consumed everything. And that light, surprisingly, came from the most unassuming source. Her name was Lyra Sterling, a new hire in the customer service department, barely 24 years old, fresh out of college, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of a massive corporation with a quiet determination. I had observed her from a distance a few times, her polite interactions with colleagues, her focused demeanor at her desk, the way she offered a genuine smile to the cleaning staff. She was a small, almost unnoticed presence in the vastness of Omnitech, yet her spirit shone brightly. The first time Lyra encountered Silas, I was again outside Omnitech, shivering on the same cold bench Blaze and Serafina had bypassed so casually. It was a particularly cold day, the kind where your breath plumed visibly in the air, and I had chosen to appear especially frail, my body visibly trembling, my eyes red-rimmed and watery. Lyra emerged during her lunch break, a simple brown paper bag clutched in her hand, her movements brisk but not hurried. She was dressed in practical, slightly worn clothes, a thick, dark coat, sensible boots, a stark contrast to the designer ensembles I had witnessed on others. As she walked past, her eyes, a warm, observant hazel, met mine. There was no judgment, no recoil, only a flicker of concern, a momentary pause in her stride. She hesitated, then, with a deep breath that seemed to gather her courage, she walked over to me. Her voice was soft, slightly nervous, as if she wasn't quite sure how to approach, but clear and utterly sincere. "Excuse me, sir. Are you all right? You look very cold." I could only manage a silent nod, my head bowed, my body racked by a faint shiver. She looked around, then back at her modest lunch, her brow furrowed with genuine worry. I saw her weigh her options, her own needs against mine. "I don't have much," she said, her voice tinged with a slight regret, "but I have an extra sandwich. And some water." She offered me half of her sandwich, a simple cheese and tomato, wrapped in a napkin, and a small bottle of water, her hand extended without a trace of hesitation or disgust. Her fingers were slender, unadorned, and her touch was warm, gentle, as my trembling fingers brushed hers. "There's a shelter a few blocks away," she continued, her voice filled with quiet earnestness, her gaze sweeping the street as if searching for directions for me. "It's warm there. They might have a bed for you tonight." I could only offer a weak, grateful smile and a nod, my throat tightening with an unexpected emotion. The sandwich, though plain, tasted like the most exquisite meal I had ever had, not for its flavor, but for the profound kindness that accompanied it. Just an hour after Blaze had scoffed at my shivering form, after Serafina had used me as a prop, Lyra had offered me her sustenance, her humanity, her concern. It was a stark, almost unbelievable contrast, and a tiny, fragile seed of hope began to sprout within me. A few days later, I saw Lyra again. I was sitting on a different bench, further down the street, intentionally appearing to be on the verge of collapsing, a persistent, rattling cough punctuating my silence. The air was even colder that evening, the sky a dull, oppressive gray. Lyra was leaving work, her shoulders slumped with the fatigue of a long day, but her step still carried a quiet determination. She spotted me. Her eyes widened with renewed concern, a flash of recognition. She rushed over, not with pity, but with a genuine alarm, her breath misting in the cold air. "Sir! Are you feeling unwell? You look terrible." She knelt beside me on the cold pavement, her gaze searching my face, truly looking at me, not past me. "Do you need help? Should I call someone? An ambulance?" I shook my head weakly, gesturing with a trembling hand that I was mute, my throat making a rough, guttural sound. Her face fell, her empathy deepening. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize." She paused, thinking, her brow furrowed in concentration, clearly trying to find a way to help despite my inability to communicate. I don't have much cash on me," she said, pulling out a small, worn wallet from her pocket, its leather soft with age. "But please, take this." She pressed a crumpled $5 bill into my hand. It was all she had, I could tell. "It's not much," she whispered, her voice full of regret that she couldn't offer more, "but maybe it can get you a warm drink, or something to eat." Her eyes were filled with a raw, unvarnished empathy, shining like beacons in the dimming light. "And please, try to get to a shelter. It's supposed to get even colder tonight." She stayed for a few more minutes, talking to me gently, even though I couldn't respond, sharing small, encouraging words about finding warmth and not losing hope. Another young man, an Omnitech intern I vaguely recognized, walked by, sparing a quick, indifferent glance before hurrying on, his headphones blasting music. The contrast was palpable. Lyra saw me, truly saw me, not as a problem to be avoided, but as a fellow human being in pain, worthy of her time, her concern, and her meager resources. The final encounter with Lyra, before my grand reveal, solidified my decision, erasing any lingering doubts. It was a cruel, blustery evening, the wind whipping through the city streets, carrying with it a biting dampness. I was intentionally looking more disoriented and unwell than ever, hunched against a cold, graffiti-scarred wall near a bus stop, shivering violently, a fake feverish flush on my cheeks, my eyes glazed over. Lyra, clearly on her way home after what must have been another exhausting shift, I had noticed her staying late more often, perhaps picking up extra hours, spotted me from across the street. This time, she didn't just hesitate, she changed direction immediately, a sudden, urgent turn in her path. She approached me with a sense of urgency, her face a mask of worry. "Sir, you can't stay out here like this. You look really sick." Her voice was firmer now, less nervous, imbued with a quiet determination. She then pulled out a small, thermal cup from her worn canvas bag, its steam faintly visible in the cold air. "I went to the coffee shop on my way," she explained, her voice breathless, slightly rushed, as if she had been worried about me. "I got you some hot tea. It's not much, but it might warm you up." She pressed the warm cup into my hands, her touch firm and steady. And then, astonishingly, she took off her own scarf, a simple but warm knitted piece, a practical accessory against the cold, and gently, with a careful tenderness, wrapped it around my neck. "I know it's not much," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind, "but it's better than nothing. Please, stay warm." She then sat beside me on the cold concrete for a moment, just sitting, sharing the silence, her presence a profound comfort in the bitter cold. She didn't say much, but her mere presence was a shield against the pervasive indifference of the city. My grandmother always said, she murmured, her voice soft and reflective, that even the smallest kindness can be a lifeline. Don't give up, sir. She didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything in return. She simply gave, from her own meager resources, of her own tired self. She saw a glimmer of humanity where others saw only a nuisance, a blight on the urban landscape. She embodied the very spirit I had hoped Omnitech would foster, the heart I feared it had lost amidst the quest for profit and power. My choice was made, clear and resolute. Lyra Sterling was the future. But every game has an end, right? The day for the grand reveal dawned with an almost theatrical flair, as if the universe itself was setting the stage. I had orchestrated it meticulously, leaving no detail to chance. It was the annual Omnitech shareholder meeting, a high-stakes event where Blaze Thorne, with Seraphina by his side, was poised to deliver a keynote address outlining his vision for the future, a vision, I knew, that was devoid of any true innovation or ethical compass, focused purely on aggressive expansion and maximizing short-term profits, driven by his insatiable hunger. The grand ballroom of the Omnitech corporate tower buzzed with the city's most influential investors, stern-faced board members, and, of course, the senior leadership, all dressed in their finest, an assembly of power and privilege. Blaze, resplendent in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Lyra earned in a month, stood at the podium, a smug, self-satisfied smile playing on his lips, radiating an almost unbearable arrogance. Seraphina beamed proudly from the front row, her phone already poised to capture every triumphant moment for her social media empire, her eyes gleaming with anticipated glory. He was mid-sentence, pontificating about unleashing the full market potential of Omnitech, using all the buzzwords he had carefully rehearsed, when the heavy, polished double doors at the back of the ballroom creaked open, slowly, deliberately. A hush fell over the room, the collective intake of breath audible. All eyes turned, drawn by the unexpected interruption. And there I stood. Not Oran Blackwood, not yet. I was Silas, in my most extreme, most pathetic iteration. My clothes were even more tattered than usual, my hair disheveled and matted, my face artfully smudged with dirt and a pallor that suggested profound illness, a man teetering on the brink. I clutched my tattered duffel bag, my shoulders hunched, my gait a slow, shuffling stagger, my head bowed in a posture of utter defeat. A few security guards, their faces a mixture of confusion and annoyance, immediately moved towards me, their walkie-talkies crackling softly. "Excuse me, sir, you can't be in here," one began, his voice firm, already reaching out to guide me away. Blaze, momentarily flustered, his carefully constructed speech interrupted, paused, his smile replaced by a scowl. His eyes narrowed in disgust as he recognized the beggar he had so casually tormented, the nuisance he had kicked aside. "What in God's name is that vagrant doing here?" he hissed into the microphone, his voice dripping with pure, unadulterated contempt, amplified for the entire room to hear. "Security, remove him immediately. This is an insult to our shareholders, an insult to Omnitech." Seraphina scoffed loudly, openly taking a video of my humiliation with her phone, probably thinking it would make a great story later, a cautionary tale for her followers about how the other half lived. But as the guards reached me, their hands extended to usher me out, I straightened, slowly, deliberately. The transformation began. My hunched shoulders uncurled, my head rose, and my eyes, which had been downcast and vacant, now locked onto Blaze with an intensity that made him falter, his confident posture wavering. A faint gasp rippled through the room, a collective murmur of confusion and dawning realization. My hand went to my face, and with a swift, practiced movement, I peeled away a thin layer of latex, revealing the familiar contours of my own jawline, the sharp, strong line they all recognized. Then, with a theatrical flourish, I shrugged off the tattered, oversized coat, letting it fall to the floor like a discarded skin, revealing a pristine, perfectly tailored three-piece suit beneath, a suit I had worn to countless board meetings, a symbol of my true identity. My disheveled wig came off next, revealing my own silver hair, meticulously combed and styled. The grime on my face vanished with a quick wipe of a hidden cloth, revealing the sharp, intelligent features of Orion Blackwood. My transformation was complete. The beggar was gone. The Titan had returned. The silence in the room was absolute, so profound you could hear a pin drop, the air crackling with stunned disbelief. Blaze's jaw hung open, his face draining of all color, his eyes wide with an dawning horror that was almost comical in its intensity. Seraphina's phone clattered to the floor, forgotten, its screen dark, her carefully composed influencer facade crumbling into a mask of pure, unadulterated shock, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal the terror in her eyes. I walked forward, my stride now firm and confident, imbued with the authority I had temporarily shed, my eyes sweeping over the stunned faces of the shareholders and board members, many of whom were now exchanging frantic whispers. My voice, deep and resonant, a voice they all recognized, boomed through the microphone Blaze had abandoned, its power echoing the shock in the room. Yes, every game has an end. And this one, my dear Blaze, concludes now. I gestured to a figure who had quietly entered behind me, my longtime legal counsel, Mr. Alastair Finch, a man known for his unflappable demeanor and razor-sharp intellect, clutching a thick stack of legal documents. "Gentlemen, ladies," I said, my voice cutting through the lingering shock like a finely honed blade, each word deliberate and precise, "I believe we have some urgent matters to discuss regarding the true future of Omnitech Solutions." The climax had arrived, and the truth, in its stark, unvarnished form, had finally come to light. The consequences were about to begin. The revelation hit Blaze and Seraphina like a physical blow, stripping them of their composure, their carefully constructed personas. Their faces, already pale, contorted into a grotesque mixture of terror, disbelief, and a desperate, frantic scramble for an explanation, for a way out. "Uncle Orion, no. This is impossible." Blaze stammered, his voice cracking, the arrogance completely gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear, his eyes darting from me to Mr. Finch, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. Seraphina, her influencer mask shattered beyond repair, simply stared, mouth agape, her eyes darting wildly around the room as if searching for an escape hatch, a filter, anything to make this nightmare disappear. The room itself felt charged with a heavy, expectant silence, every eye fixed on the unfolding drama. I let them stew in their horror for a moment, letting the full weight of their past actions descend upon them, allowing them to truly comprehend the magnitude of their misjudgment. Then, my voice, calm but imbued with an undeniable authority that brooked no argument, cut through the silence like a surgeon's scalpel. "Impossible, Blaze. Or merely inconvenient. Every callous remark, every dismissive glance, every act of cruelty, I witnessed it all. Not as your Uncle Orion, the benevolent patriarch you so eagerly wished to inherit from, but as Silas, the man you deemed utterly worthless." I recounted, with chilling precision, their various offenses, each detail landing like a hammer blow, extinguishing any hope of denial, Seraphina using me as a backdrop for her urban struggle, selfie, her brittle laughter echoing my humiliation, Blaze kicking away the coin and his subsequent cruel monologue about self-reliance while I feigned shivering, their utter disregard as I feigned collapse, navigating around me as if I were refuse. You saw a man in need, a human being at his most vulnerable, and you saw only an opportunity for a cheap laugh, a social media post, or an object of your disdain. You demonstrated, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that your hearts are as barren as the cold streets I walked. The humiliation on their faces was absolute, undeniable. My lawyer, Mr. Finch, then stepped forward, his voice equally devoid of emotion, a cold, legal instrument. "Effective immediately, Mr. Blaze Thorne's employment with Omnitech Solutions is terminated." All company shares held by Mr. Thorne and any affiliated parties are hereby rescinded. Furthermore, a full audit of all financial dealings under Mr. Thorne's purview will commence at once, with particular attention to any misappropriation of company funds or assets. The words were delivered with a cold efficiency that left no room for argument, for negotiation, for appeal. Blaze crumpled, literally, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him, his knees buckling slightly, his face a mask of utter despair. Serafina, realizing her entire future, her carefully cultivated image, her lavish lifestyle, was disintegrating before her eyes, let out a choked sob, a raw, ugly sound that was utterly unlike her polished persona. Her social media empire, built on a foundation of curated perfection, would now be exposed to the harsh glare of public scrutiny, revealing the ugly truth behind the veneer. Her followers, those who idolized her authentic life, would soon witness her monumental downfall, fueled by the very technology she had so carelessly exploited. They had sought an empire, and now they had nothing but the bitter taste of public humiliation and professional ruin. The silence in the room was now heavy with a different kind of shock, one of justice served. Then, my gaze shifted. I turned to the back of the room, where a bewildered Lyra Sterling stood, having been summoned to the meeting under the pretense of a client feedback review, her presence a stark contrast to the opulence around her. Her eyes, wide with confusion, met mine. She clearly recognized me, but the context was utterly baffling to her. "And now," I announced, my voice softening slightly, a warmth returning to my tone, "I would like to introduce you all to Lyra Sterling." Lyra, pale and trembling, was gently guided to the front of the room by one of the security guards, who had clearly understood the shift in dynamics. "Lyra," I began, my voice now laced with genuine warmth, a profound gratitude swelling within me, "you, unknowingly, were also part of my experiment. You saw Silas, not as a vagrant or a nuisance, but as a human being in need. You shared your meager lunch, offered what little money you had, gave your own scarf to keep a stranger warm, and sat with him, offering comfort and hope when everyone else simply looked away. You saw a soul, not a problem." Lyra's eyes brimmed with tears, her humility evident, her gaze still flicking between me and the stunned faces in the room. "Sir, I just did what anyone would do," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached my eyes. "No, Lyra. You did what few would do. You showed me that the heart of Omnitech, the true spirit of empathy and human connection, still beats strong within these walls. It beats in you." I turned to the stunned shareholders and board members, my voice regaining its power, now imbued with conviction. "Therefore, it is my immense pleasure to announce that Lyra Sterling will be appointed as the new Chief Ethics and Innovation Officer of Omnitech Solutions, effective immediately. She will also be granted a substantial equity stake in the company, ensuring she has the resources and authority to shape its future according to the values she so clearly embodies." Lyra gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears streaming down her face, her disbelief palpable. "Mr. Blackwood. I don't know what to say. This is too much. I'm just a customer service rep." "No, Lyra," I interrupted gently, walking towards her, taking her hand in a gesture of profound respect. "You are the embodiment of Omnitech's true spirit. You demonstrated that compassion and integrity are more valuable than any market strategy or quarterly report. You showed me that Omnitech still has a heart, and that is what I choose to lead it." Her disbelief, her humble protests, her overwhelming gratitude, it was all profoundly moving. She wasn't asking for it, she hadn't schemed for it, she had earned it through pure, unadulterated kindness, through the simple act of seeing another human being. The applause, hesitant at first, slowly swelled through the room, a testament to the undeniable power of her quiet dignity. So what happened to them all? In the aftermath, a profound sense of peace settled within me. My decision, once a heavy burden, now felt lighter than air. Omnitech, under Lyra Sterling's guidance, underwent a remarkable transformation. Her initial shock gave way to a quiet determination, a humble but fierce resolve to uphold the values she had unknowingly championed. She approached her new role not with arrogance, but with a humble dedication, ensuring that ethical considerations were woven into the very fabric of every innovation, every new product, every business decision. She initiated programs for employee well-being, invested heavily in community outreach, and oversaw the development of AI technology specifically designed for social good. The company, inspired by her story and my renewed vision, flourished, not just financially, but culturally. Employee morale soared, new initiatives focused on community outreach and sustainable development were launched, and Omnitech's reputation as a leader in both technology and corporate social responsibility reached new heights. I was finally able to step back, truly retire, knowing that my life's work was in the hands of someone who genuinely cared, someone who understood that true wealth lay not in accumulation, but in impact and empathy. Blaze Thorne and Serafina Vance, however, found themselves cast into a very different reality. Their fall from grace was swift and brutal. The public humiliation, fueled by Serafina's own extensive social media history and Blaze's widely reported dismissal for gross misconduct, made them pariahs in their elite circles. The story, picked up by every major news outlet, painted a damning portrait of their greed and cruelty. Blaze, stripped of his position, his reputation, and his shares, found every corporate door closed to him. His attempts to rebuild were met with skepticism and scorn. His ruthlessness, once a perceived asset, was now seen as a toxic flaw, a liability no one wanted. He tried to start his own ventures, but investors shied away, wary of his tarnished name. Serafina's influencer career imploded overnight. The carefully constructed facade of her perfect life crumbled, revealing the ugly truth of her character to millions. She lost sponsors, followers, and credibility, fading into a bitter obscurity, her carefully curated feed becoming a wasteland of angry comments and ridicule. They were left with the very material possessions they had so coveted, the empty symbols of their former status, but without the respect, the power, or the genuine connection they had always lacked. Their greed had promised them everything, but in the end, it delivered only emptiness, a hollow existence devoid of purpose or genuine human warmth. Lyra, on the other hand, thrived. She grew into her role with grace and strength, proving to be not just compassionate, but also remarkably intelligent and astute. She built a new culture within Omnitech, one where every employee, regardless of their position, felt valued and heard, where innovation was balanced with responsibility. She became a beacon of hope and a testament to the fact that kindness, when given freely, is the most powerful currency of all, a force capable of transforming not just individuals, but entire corporations. I often visited her, a quiet observer in the halls of my own company, watching her lead with an integrity that made me prouder than any financial success ever could. I learned my lesson about human nature, a lesson etched deeply into my soul. It was a painful, yet ultimately liberating, journey into the heart of humanity. Wealth can hide many things, it can blind us to uncomfortable truths, but a true heart shines through, no matter the rags or the meticulously crafted disguises. True character is revealed not in how we treat those who can elevate us, who can offer us power or profit, but in how we treat those who can do nothing for us, those we perceive as having no value. That is the ultimate test. Our channel is full of stories like this, tales of surprising truths and unexpected turns, of human nature laid bare. If you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single story. Have you ever been surprised by someone's true colors, either for better or worse? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one.